Hiphopvshiphop podcast back in effect. It's your boy, the almighty Nicodemus, here again. Day 2, going for 2 days in a row on a beautiful Wednesday morning, feeling blessed. And I'm gonna keep it going from yesterday. Now, I know I ended yesterday. I was saying the early 2000s. In my opinion, the early 2000s is where the formula for today's mainstream hip-hop, to me, started. And I say that's the reason why, I believe this is the reason why the sales the sales of hip-hop are declining, as they say, which I really don't care about because I don't mean nothing, but it goes to show that pop formula, man, isn't made for hip-hop. You know, hip-hop music is an anti-pop music. It's anti-mainstream music, but it ended up going mainstream, generated a lot of money. But there was never a formula for any of the artists that shot up to mainstream. They did it off of what they were doing and what they felt. And once they found that formula, they milked it. And that's not going to resonate after a while. But one thing I want to point out, since the beginning of this topic started with Joe Budden and the Drake conversation, I consider Joe Budden a mainstream media outlet. I know it's a podcast, but it's still a mainstream media outlet. Most of their points, most of their topics, and I don't even watch it much, but I've watched it before, but most of the things that they touch on and that they talk about are pretty much mainstream issues, whether it be the usual gossip that you might see on Instagram or Twitter, things of that nature, or some type of mainstream pop artist. When it comes to the music, I don't know if these mainstream outlets like the Joe Budden podcast or the Breakfast Club, I don't know if they get money from the record labels. I have no idea. I'm not even intertwined or informed enough about the music industry like that to know if that's what's going on. But they all talk about the same things. They all talk about the same rappers. Now, one thing about hip-hop, because it is anti-mainstream by nature, there's still artists out here who are not making mainstream music. They're not following that formula. They're not following that format where those beats, those heavy 808s, those triplet hi-hats, there's a lot of rappers who are not following that format. You don't hear none of those mainstream outlets talk about them. I didn't hear the Breakfast Club talking about Mick Jenkins' album. I didn't hear Joe Budden say anything about Black Milk's album. I haven't heard them talk about the Alchemist and Earl Sweatshirt EP that just dropped. I didn't hear him say I've never heard them say anything about Boldy James. I've never heard them say anything about Rome Streets, Your Old Droog. It's a lot of that stuff I haven't heard. That's on those outlets that are doing the complaining. Because when you have outlets, to me, they are hip-hop, true hip-hop outlets. Dead End Hip-Hops, Dad Bod, Rap Pod, what's the other ones? Dad Bod, Rap Pod, Dead End Hip Hop. Mom Skills got a dope podcast where he does hip hop trivia, and so it's a few of them out there. I can't name them all. I just pretty much name the ones I really listen to. There are other specific ones that do talk about those underground artists. But my point I'm making is those people, those mainstream outlets, and these guys like Juicy J and all of these guys like that keep saying, hey, it's falling off and the sales are down. Like, y'all are industry dudes, in my opinion. You know, to me, an industry plant isn't someone that industry plants, but to me, my version of an industry plant is a company man. You do everything for the company. You work for the company. You follow the company's format. And that's what most of these guys that pull out, that do this mainstream music is. And these outlets. They're all industry plants. They're all company men. They're all sticking to the industry standard. And I mean, if that's the business, that's the business. But if you're calling yourself a hip-hop outlet, or you a hip-hop podcast, or you one of those mainstream hip-hop podcasts, we cover all hip-hop. Whether it's mainstream hip-hop or underground hip-hop. Because the only hip-hop that exists ain't the babies, the little babies, and Yeats, and Sexy Reds, and Ice Spice. They're not the only people making hip-hop music. But for some reason, these outlets, and even on the social media platforms, people just talk about that, and that's fine. But hip-hop is more than just more than just those rappers. There's extensive things, especially nowadays, because of streaming and how easy it is to just release music and put music out there. There's so much music to discover, and there's no reason that everyone should be just concentrated on those particular rappers, those mainstream rappers that play on the radio, which who the hell still really listening to the radio nowadays? You know? And the people that probably are still listening to the radio, I'm pretty sure that's not the music they want to listen to. And they're still playing that crap on the radio. I don't want to diss the young generation. They're still playing that stuff on the radio. And most of the people probably listening to the radio are probably older women. They're not trying to check for that. Probably wouldn't mind hearing some of the stuff they used to listen to, but not really checking for that like that. Or buying into that. Maybe their kids don't really listen to the radio now because they got too many other streaming platforms where they can go and listen to stuff at, whether it's Spotify, YouTube, maybe SoundCloud. I don't know if SoundCloud is really getting down like that no more, but you got all these different places where kids can go to listen to music. So I don't even know why the radio is still even a thing, but I'm pretty sure it'll be over and done with in some years to come. But yeah, man, I just wish that people would stop, especially this year. Like I said, hip hop is 50, and for some reason this year it's just been downtrodden. Just before hip hop turned 50, people were just sitting up there talking about how it's the #1 genre of all music, and now all of a sudden it's falling off. Sales are down. Nobody's listening. No, nobody's listening to a lot of the mainstream stuff because the mainstream stuff is a formula that the industry has been using since the early 2000s. And they've been using that formula because they found that wave and they're trying to stick to it. And it's only going to get worse if hip-hop don't start loving hip-hop and start covering and talking about all hip-hop. Because hip-hop is 50, so are the people that's in it. And even so are the people that listen to it. They're older too. So everybody's not just specifically interested in what's going on for their kids. Because I can tell you right now, I'm not into listening to the music that my children listen to. I know what they listening to, but I ain't listening to it. I'm not bumping around. I'm not running around trying to be like them, dress like them, or listen to the music that they listen to. Because I'm not in high school no more. I'm not in middle school no more. Those topics, that energy doesn't touch me no more. And it's the same way, pause, shout out to Cam and Mason. But it's the same thing. You know, my parents weren't all into my music because they were not my age. So it wasn't made for them. Since hip-hop is older and the people that listen to it and grew up off of it is older, you ain't got to cater things to older people, but with all of these services, you got to acknowledge that things are still getting better. It's moving along. But if y'all want to keep this underground mainstream thing going, it's going to always look like hip-hop is losing at a certain point because the mainstream is a standard. It's an industry standard, and that's why everything ends up sounding the same. Because that's what they want to push. But we're not supposed to let the industry tell us what hip-hop is. We're supposed to dictate what hip-hop is. So on that note, I'm going to leave it there. It's your boy, the Almighty Nicodemus, Power 7 Podcast. I'm out.